Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, councillors. Good evening, staff, and good evening, gallery. If I could please just begin with the statement of acknowledgement. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we are meeting. We pay our respects to their elders and to elders from other communities who may be here today. Item 3 on our agenda is apologies and requests for leave of absence. I'm going to jump in first. I would request a leave of absence. I'm actually taking a 2-week break, which you'll see further on in the agenda. Also, Councillor Quilty, request for leave of absence? Yep, no. Thank you. You have indeed. I'm just reminding you, you're going on holidays as well.
Have we approved it?
No. And CEO, I do believe that you're also going to try and take a rest as well. Item 4 is declarations under acts, regulations, codes or local laws. Would you...
Yes, Madam Mayor and councillors, persons are reminded the video, audio or image recording devices can only be used if there has been prior permission from the Mayor or Chairperson.
Thank you. And councillors, I do have an indication that 8.6 be moved to the last item for efficiencies and so we don't move galleries in and out, etc. So I suggest that we do move that 8.6 to the last item just after questions. Can I have someone move that we do that? Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Did you need any comment? Was anybody going to talk against that? No, councillors, the motion there is before us. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Now I just have to remember to do all that. Item 5 is declarations by councillors of any conflicts. Councillor Mildren, you have some.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.10, the sport and rec matter, and item 9.3, building permits listing.
Thank you, Councillor Mildren. Was there any others? Councillor Hall, none tonight? No. Oh, there you go. You get to do the whole meeting. Okay, councillors, item 6 is confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. The recommendation is there on page 3. Can I have someone move it? Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Quilty, any comments? Councillor Bennett, other councillors? Motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. The second recommendation is there from the special meeting held on Friday, June 15. Recommendation page 4. Can I have someone move it? Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Thank you, Councillor Hall. Is anybody going to speak against it? I'll put the motion. Motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 7 is the delegates' report. This month there is none, but stay tuned, because there will be one from a recent visit to Canberra from Councillor Bennett, Councillor Lowe and myself last week. Item 8.1 is the appointment of acting mayor, so I can go and get a break and come back looking fresh as a daisy. So the recommendation is there on page 11. I do need someone to move who will take the position of acting mayor for those 2 weeks that I am away.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councillor Kat Bennett.
Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Is there any other nominations? No. Is there any comments? No. Councillors, put that motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried, and thank you very much, Councillor Bennett, for stepping up to the plate and filling in so I can take that break. Item 8.2. Now, councillors, you will have the new agenda tabled reports on the table. There was a slight adjustment to 8.4 from our notes that we had handed out to us last week, just so you know. Councillors, the motion, just give me a minute because I haven't got this one tabbed, is there on page 11 of that new document. Councillors, the motion and recommendation is there on page 11. Can I have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Thank you. Somebody else would like to second it? Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Lowe.
Not a lot to add to this, Madam Mayor, just more, it was good to get the submissions and community feedback. Obviously with the Ombudsman's handing down, things will be tight here. The organisation, as per normal, has looked for efficiencies in that, and then us as councillors have had to make some serious decisions on what our strategic plan was and our council plan for this 4 years was. So unfortunately, a lot of the submissions and feedback we may not have been able to accommodate in this budget financial year just due to the restrictions.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and I do thank particularly the submissions that came through, but also the submissions that came through the internet, comments and things like that, which is it's growing, and it's very pleasing to see that people have an interest in our city and in our budget and in our processes. I wasn't available for the special meeting, however, I did use the opportunity of the vision and to see Michael Fraser put his submission in person. So I think it's a great process that when you're external and not at a meeting, you can still see what's going on.
I just wanted to highlight two submissions. One from the Upper Hume Primary Care Partnership, so they support council's work in terms of more shade, playgrounds and water bubblers. So their strategic plan is around promoting health in Wodonga, Indigo and Towong. So it's great that our plans are aligned, so there's more people working towards the same thing. There was also another submission that I just wanted to highlight. Sometimes when things are written by people, they're taken as fact. So there's one submission here that claims that Wodonga Council staff are the highest paid in regional Victoria. I don't know where that they didn't reference that, but when we did the numbers on that one, the actual average salary of Wodonga Council employees in 2018, so this is on page 6, is 79, and as a comparison, the average salary of the Victorian regional cities in 2016 was 80 grand. So we've got these stats from the financial statements of other councils put up on their websites. I just think sometimes when there are inaccuracies, it's our role to make sure the correct information is put out there.
Councillor Milton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm take a little bit of a different view on this. I'm a bit disappointed that we didn't get more submissions to the budget in light of what's been going on. That be as it is, I would have been somewhat happier to deal with this budget if we could have dealt with the Ombudsman's report and the outcome of that to deal with the whole problem this year. And I've been quite open in the community to that point of view. I think we have some obligations to deal with these things in a different way. I understand that budgets are things that have to be dealt with what's available to us to deal with at the given time, and at the moment we didn't have the option of considering a change to the rates to offset any of the waste management levy issues, and I accept that they're issues. I think in commenting on this particular matter, we did get submissions requesting that we deal with a reduction of the entire surplus in the waste management levy, and my preference would have been to deal with that now, this year. Clearly this motion doesn't do that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I just thought I'd mention Mike Fraser again for his interesting presentation. I do think at some level he's correct that we do overstate our employee costs and material services. But anyway, we shall see how the budget pans out at the end of the year.
Thank you, councillors. If you'll allow me, first of all, I'd like to congratulate the CEO and the staff on being prepared to continue to try something new. What we saw in this budget was the greatest number of submissions we've ever had for a budget. And being able to talk to our people and to our community is probably the highest priority that as councillors we should have. Being able to reach so many was fantastic. So Kelly, I know that's from you and your team, especially worked very hard at that. Is it the only way online that you can talk to us? No. We do meet people face to face. I talk to people in the street every day of the week. But being able to offer different ways has been a number one thing that we've looked at. We've continued to try new ways, particularly if one way we don't seem to be getting any feedback. So pretty clearly, our community's decided to talk to us online, and I think that's fantastic. The feedback that we received was incredibly broad. And when you look at how broad it was, it really went from my local park at the end of my street right through to some other issues where you saw them talking about some of the greater things, such as, and the reports there, councillors, we've got it, you've got the summaries, but talking about community safety, talking about housing estates and the new ones and what occurs as they're being developed, talking about shade, talking about CCTV, footpaths, community, recreation, the list goes on. And so I think the other thing that's very interesting, and Councillor Mildren, you touched on it, in and around the waste comments, there was 3 out of the 2,500 online. Does that make it any less important? No, it does not. But it certainly highlights the interest of our community across a plethora of both services and things that we continue to provide and that they, our community, find really important. So I think it's really great to see those numbers, that amount of feedback increase and stand out. Like I said, 13 years at this table, and this is by far the greatest number of feedbacks that we've had. So submissions are different, and again, you know, we did receive the half a dozen. That's about standard. That's pretty much technically what we've seen certainly I've seen each year as I've sat here. And again, they are a myriad of different ideas. What's very interesting is there really is more call, the majority, the bulk of everything that we see is actually about can we have more, not less. So it does make our job incredibly challenging, and I think, Councillor Lowe, you absolutely hit on that. As we go forward and we continue to look, and if we have any savings from this year's budget, they have to be something that we consider, because this is our community telling us. So, CEO, I think it's great to see that level of feedback. You know, I look forward to continue to try out new ways to continue to talk to our community at large. So, Councillor Lowe, back to you for some close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Basically, us councillors are conduits. We're conduits. The community talk to us and we relay the message to council on their behalf, and also back the other way. It's communication's a two-way street, and the more communication we have, the more we get both better understanding as ratepayers, and also the staff can hear the messages loud and clear from us relaying them through. What this engagement summary does for me is aligns us to our community plan and consultation we did last year, our roundtable discussions, our seats on the streets, and we're still getting the same familiar theme back from our community. And I won't go back over some of the stuff that you went on, Madam Mayor, but this pinpoint presentation, Kel, our media girl, is first class. And the interesting thing in its summary, it only takes into account the unique suggestions from our community. It doesn't actually take into account the likes each one of those had. And we've got our hilltops coming up later, but it was amazing the actual amount of likes people from our community gave in as far as recreation and usage of our hills goes. So it's the community is still telling us the same thing of what they want. Now we've got to find out how we do that in a both environmentally and fiscally responsible way. Thank you.
Councillors, the motion is there before us. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Item 8.3 is the council plan, so you need to come out of that document, which has got 8.4 in it, and go to 8.3. That is the council plan. Item is there on page 16. Can I have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Bennett. No comment, Councillor Watson?
Once again, I'd just like to thank the staff and ourselves who have worked to put all this together in a document that we can use for moving us forward in our community.
Councillor Bennett, anything for close? Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 8.4, again, go back to that document, please, councillors, the one that was on your desk, because it has the updated recommendation in it, where we sought some clarity in and around one of those items. And the recommendation is a long one. It starts on page 18 of 31, and continues for several pages. Can I have, it's a long recommendation, isn't it, Councillor Quilty? Can I have someone move, please? Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Lowe.
As I was saying earlier, Madam Mayor, we are a conduit, and one thing I've heard from the community in this budget is about how we're going about addressing the Ombudsman's recommendation. And the Ombudsman's recommendation was to do it over a 3-year period, and we as councillors voted to do it in a 2-year period. But we've also got to be mindful of the impact that it has on our community. It's really simple to go, let's strip everything away and pull it all out in the one budget. But that also has a compounding effect. But the really good message, the positive from the negative, it's always easy to draw upon the negative in things, is we are addressing it. We're going to do it in 2 years. We've listened to the community and gone back again and worked amongst ourselves in collaboration with council to reduce the waste levy even further. So effectively it's giving us a 0% rate rise, which I think is for now a good outcome for the community. It also gives us an opportunity to see what effects any other further reductions will have on the community.
Madam Mayor, probably the only thing is in the conclusion is that we had no submissions received objecting to the rate and curbside garbage charges and things like that with the increase of 2.25. So, we have had it out for community consultation. We've seen that just recently in the last motion to come back with that information. So we have a lot of data now to work with to now enact this budget.
I'd just like to have this recorded. Okay, I haven't changed my position from the last council meeting. The Ombudsman recommendation in the Waste Management Levy report stated that the council reduced the amount of its waste management levy to reasonable costs to providing the service within the 3 year of the date of the report. It did not state it had to be broken up over this period to address the amount. I believe, as I stated at the last council meeting in May 2018, that we should address it as a whole in the budget, because I believe in not doing so we're condoning the overcharging for another 12 months.
Just a point of order, if we're going to do it in the 1 year, just an explanation of what are those implications of the financial, if Councillor Hall could address that.
I haven't finished yet. Okay. I do not support the overcharging the ratepayers to continue, and I want this to stop and be addressed in this budget, the 2018-2019. It is what I believe the community expect council to do, and is what they deserve going forward. I believe this can be done without big cuts to council services, so don't be swayed by that argument that it states it would need to be done. If there is a will to want to do it, it can be done. The budget falls way short of addressing the whole amount of the waste management levy, and still leaves around $89 in the 2019-2020 budget to still be addressed. $89 of overcharging for at least the next 12 months. I cannot support this. there is areas in the budget. I'm going outside of what I've asked to be put down, but there's another 1.7 mil. I think there are a lot of spending areas where we could cut back, but I haven't really been given the opportunity to put that forward, so I won't be supporting it tonight.
Councillor Hall just explain how she hasn't been given the opportunity. We've all sat in the same discussions and briefings and had opportunities to go through the budget. I'm just not sure on that point.
I was unavailable for a meeting on the Friday that at the last minute was pointed out to be a discussion on the briefing, and I asked for some further time to be allocated to myself, which was not made available to me.
I'm not sure I actually got the answer then, to be honest. It's up to ourselves to ask the questions, make the assumption and gather our information. So I'm not sure if it's one day or a whole series of events that's not giving you enough time. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a lot of good things in this budget, but principally my initial and main concern is probably clear from previous comments and things that I've said more recently. I find what's happened with the waste management levy to be morally and ethically inappropriate, and it really concerns me that we're continuing to charge a fee or a levy that's greater than the amount required to cover what that levy is purported to be in existence for. That it worries me because basically we've been found by the Ombudsman to have done the wrong thing, and yes, the Ombudsman's given us 3 years within which to rectify the problem, but I don't think that gives us the right to continue to charge for something that isn't what we're using the money for. We've been told by the Ombudsman we're wrong. We've been told by the Premier of Victoria that we're wrong. We've been told by the Treasurer of the State of Victoria that we're wrong. And we've been told by the Minister for Local Government that we're wrong. We may not have had hordes of submissions from our community saying that they're dissatisfied, and indeed there is good reason and rationalisation that can be made to say, well, we didn't use the money inappropriately, and we didn't. But it doesn't make it any easier to accept that we're actually charging for something that's inappropriate. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Quilty and Councillor Bennett.
All right. Last meeting, I voted to put the draft budget to the community for exhibition or for consultation. That was not because I supported the budget, but because I wanted to get it out in the community for comment. You'll probably recall last year I voted against the budget because I didn't think we'd cut hard enough or indeed cut at all. Many things are the same this year. Once again, you can't call this a lean budget. There's plenty of fat. We've tucked some of the rolls into our belt, but they're still bulging out at the seams. I've stated before areas I would trim: duplicate footpaths, a slice from tree planting, a snip from the parks and gardens, put the marketing and communications department on a budget, on a diet. Which brings me to the waste management levy. Knowingly raising more than we spend on the levy was wrong, I think, I hope. We've passed the point where anyone's trying to defend that. We could have cut the whole amount this year. We should have cut the whole amount this year. If it was wrong to raise 2.2 million extra last year, it's wrong to raise 1.7 million extra this year. However, at the last meeting, I expected I'd be here tonight railing about a $12 cut to the levy. Instead, we've delivered a $50 cut. Coupled to a maximum allowed height in the ordinary rates, it leaves us with basically a 0 rate rise this year, which leaves me conflicted. I've said in the past I aim to deliver some 0 rate rises, and during the last couple of months in budget discussions, I've said I aim to have the minimum cut in the waste management levy I'd accept would be about $50. I never thought that would be taken seriously. At the time, a cut of that magnitude seemed utterly impossible, couldn't be done. But I guess a few weeks of bad publicity can shift positions. I don't want to vote for this budget. Doing so is going to leave a very sour taste in my mouth. And I feel it's potentially a get out of jail free card come this time next year. I expect there are going to be all kinds of reasons why we can't find the other $1.5 million to cut and need to have a rate rise above the cap. However, I am going to grit my teeth and vote in favour of the budget this year, but foreshadow that I will definitely vote against next year if we don't find the rest of the cut.
Councillor Quilty. Councillor Bennett.
I just wanted to quickly highlight some of the feedback in the report we've all received about what our community is telling us loud and clear that they like and they want. There's some themes here, we've all got them in front of us: parks and gardens, footpaths and trees. So that's just an interesting thing to consider when our community is telling us what's really important to them. I am happy with the savings that have been found. Yes, councillors have sat around the table and discussed this, but it's been so much work from the staff. So a huge congratulations to the staff, particularly Narelle and your staff, for finding this. We are going to miss out on some things. There are some important things in here that equate to our savings. But I think, like I agree with Councillor Quilty, having a 0% rate rise is a good outcome.
Councillors, I'm just going to do a pretty quick summary. This budget delivers, as you've said, actually just slightly less than 0% rate rise. And as per our unanimous agreement at the last council meeting to adopt the Ombudsman's recommendations over 2 years, we deliver the first half of the Ombudsman's recommendation, with work also commencing on the next half for the next budget to either further decrease or move the waste spending from the rating ledger. We're going to continue to invest in the things that our community values most: sporting precincts, parks, footpaths, provisions of services such as safety, parks and gardens, seniors months, events, etc. The list is long. We're also going to see investment in our public infrastructure that really does enable further private sector investment and growth in our economy. And councillors, I'll remind you, it's a legislative requirement that we work hard to ensure there is a sustainable budget and that we look absolutely to future generations of this community, not just here and now. So upon reflection, this budget will enable our community, its people and its businesses to continue to prosper and thrive, while also ensuring that we continue to review and achieve cost efficiencies and increases in productivity right across our organisation. Councillors, there has been a lot of work done. We have sat numerous times to go through the budget, line by line, item by item, question by question. So, councillors, I think we have done good work on behalf of our community and will continue to do so. Councillor Lowe, back to you for close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Household budgets are hard enough to understand and control yourself. I kind of run on the theory that you don't spend more than you earn, but it doesn't necessarily work out that way. You know, I've got a credit card debt. That tells me one thing: somewhere along the line, I've gone and spent more than I earn. So household budgets seem safe, easy, controllable, but most of us get it wrong. We're actually in charge of a $63 million budget. There's layers of complexity here, if that's even a word. I think I might have made that up, but that most people don't understand. So we've had the Ombudsman come in and lay another complex layer over that as well, and we're actioning this, Councillor Quilty. You're right. We've gone in, we've decided 2 years, and we want to see this. We got hit with a big stick, as I've said before, and we're going to action it. We're going to put it into place, and next year's budget will address the other 1.5. How we do that, that's up to us as leaders. That's what we've been elected to do. We've been elected to make decisions on behalf of our community, but also by listening to them. So this is one thing that we will do, and we'll move forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. The very long motion is there before you over several pages. All those in favour? Against? Yep, motion is carried. Councillors, all those for? Councillor Lowe, Councillor Hall, you had your hand up before? No? Councillor Lowe, can you please record these? Councillor Lowe, Councillor Speedy, Councillor Quilty, Councillor Watson, Councillor Bennett, you try and say those really fast. Against? Thank you, Councillor Mildren and Councillor Hall. Motion is carried. Item 8.5, appointment of acting CEO. We do have a new recommendation there. Can I have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Would you please read that out?
The Director of Planning and Infrastructure, Leon Schultz, be appointed as Acting Chief Executive Officer for a 3-week period when the Chief Executive Officer, Patience Harrington, is on leave during July and August 2018, with the CEO to provide written advice to the Mayor of the actual dates of the annual leave. And 2, Mr Schultz be authorised to exercise all powers and authorities reposed in the position of Chief Executive Officer for the period of the appointment as Acting Chief Executive Officer. No comments, just Patience, enjoy your time off, and Leon, look forward to you as CEO.
Other councillors, any comment? No, close. Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you, motion is carried. Item 8.6, councillors, we have moved to the last item, so just after questions. As per the move and seconded item right up front at item 4 of the agenda. So it's not going away, it's just been moved there to allow for the discussion and then to move anything into confidential should we need to discuss because of privacy around individual names, etc. It's about protecting people who have applied and etc. so that we can have a very open and frank discussion as would be appropriate. So councillors, moving to item 8.7, park names. Councillor Bennett, would you like to move this given you're our names lady? Thank you. Other seconder? Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Bennett.
Yes, as the names lady, I will talk to this one. So this is such a good example of why it is so critical to go out to community for feedback. A community member who's not named in this, but I've got his permission to use his name. So Dom Summers picked up that there was a park that near him that was being redeveloped in a different way to our normal parks because it was on culturally significant land. So when he saw all the suggested name titles, he thought it was a real missed opportunity that that particular park didn't have the recognition of the Aboriginal significance. So he picked this up, which was fantastic. And I actually, when I got onto this group, had the mandate of making it more diverse, but somehow I oversaw that as well. So fantastic, such a good example of going out to the community because we don't know everything. So the place naming committee completely agreed with all the feedback that we received, and we've gone back to the drawing board on that particular park. It's Park 4. We've been working with our Aboriginal community. We've got a couple of suggestions which we will be putting into motion soon. So fantastic outcome.
Just like to thank Councillor Bennett for representing us on the Parks Name Committee there. And just goes to show, you don't know what you don't know. You're 100% correct, and that's why we do these consultative matters, to go out and seek feedback, and it's great that we got some really good community involvement and feedback, Councillor. That's it, thank you.
Any other councillors? No? Will.
Madam Mayor, I think one of the nice things about us naming parks and reserves after either current or past people of our community reminds of who they were and what they did for our communities. And could I point out probably a few names, as in Jack Johnson, Ida Schubert. Kosovar Park was when we actually took in a lot of Kosovar refugees during a period in my earlier council days. Bidgood Park. These are all people that have contributed a lot to our community, and their families continue to contribute. And so I think it's a great way. And I think the late Mel Reid is another person who contributed so much to our community, both as a commissioner and an Albury City councillor and on the Albury Wodonga Development Corporation. So I just think it just reflects all our great history that our community has, and it's there in stone, could I say, for future generations.
I think just even a little further is you're actually also seeing a lot of names that I would suggest went through Bonegilla. So in terms about representing different cultural backgrounds and understanding where some of our history came from, I think it's a terrific representation, and I think it's fantastic that we did get that pick up for our Indigenous community. Over to you, Councillor Bennett, for close.
Yes, I did just want to pick up on something Councillor Watson said. So Councillor Watson was on the committee before I was, but since I've been on the committee in the last little while, there's actually been legislation that we can only name parks after people who have actually deceased, not currently living. So I just wanted to clarify that one.
So there'll be no Speedy Park anytime soon, is what you're telling me, or maybe. Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 8.8 is the Procurement Policy, and the recommendation is there on page 38. Can I have someone move it? Thank you, Councillor Lowe. I feel like I'm at the tennis. Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillor Lowe.
Just quickly, Madam Mayor, that it's the policy lays out how we purchase stuff, but my main, shouldn't say my main interest, a interest of mine in this is the social enterprise component of the procurement policy, also the local suppliers component. I believe in a circular economy, so the more stuff that we can hand to local suppliers, the better, and also having people like the Murray Valley Centre organisation help run our litter and garden maintenance program. So helping employ those with challenges and give them a sense of worth. Thank you.
All right, I just wanted to touch on one point. It's been suggested that the benefit to the local region weighting of 10% represents an extra 10% rise in the total cost to the ratepayers, and then another 5% for the environment. That's not necessarily how it works. There might be additional costs, but it certainly won't be 10% or 15%. It encourages all applicants to do something of local benefit, so they won't score lowly in this criteria. Having said that, we are apparently not sure exactly what the cost of these criteria are to us, which seems to be a bit of an oversight. I have requested that staff keep a rough track on these things going forward, so that this time next year or next year at some point we can say definitively what this does cost us, but certainly it won't be 10 or 15%.
Other councillors? Any comment? Councillor Mildred.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Broadly, I support the policy, but I find it perhaps amusing that the open and fair competition requirement says treat all current and prospective suppliers and vendors fairly in an open and transparent manner without any bias or the perception of bias, yet we build bias into the policy itself. And I might add, I accept that we should be building the bias in terms of those matters that Councillor Lowe referred to and others that are appropriate. I just find it interesting that there would appear to be a bit of a contradiction in the terms there, but nonetheless, I still support the policy.
Yes, the council, getting a council procurement policy right is important. The policy needs to be efficient, clearly defined and deliver value for money in accordance with the legislation and best practices as stated in the council report. We need to be forever mindful, though, that we don't become biased, even if it is perceived or unintentional, as this in the short and long term won't be of a benefit to the council, the community going forward. We should always be open and transparent as much as we can when we award contracts and tenders. There are parts of the policy criteria that give, which has been mentioned a few times here, 10% to social procurement, although it is only 10% of the evaluation process. I do worry it could be used to get an advantage. There are benefits to the community with this criteria, and I accept this, but we must also be mindful that it does not put the smaller or the not as profitable companies and businesses at a disadvantage because they cannot achieve this criteria without it costs to implement or donate to. Their business may not be able to afford the extra cost of the tender that could possibly win them a tender going forward. So I do think we have to be mindful of this and I believe the council is in how they evaluate. But yeah, it's something that should be noted, and as Tim said, it would be good to get some documentation back forward from the council to see how it all pans out. Thank you.
Councillors, I'd just like to step through a couple of things. I think we need to be really mindful that the procurement policy only has the weighting for local content, all other things being equal. So ensuring that somebody can actually do the job and is, in those cost realms and competitive against everybody else. And it's actually up to us as councillors to ensure that the policy is both current, reviewed and appropriate. We need to do that. That's our role. In addition to that, I don't want to let things be confused, but a couple of years back, council took a pretty leading and long-term view in terms of saying, well, as leaders of the community and on behalf of our community, let's make sure part of this, a small amount of the spend that we do, which is of large magnitude every single year, that where it's possible, let's have a look at a small amount going to an area where we have to do things, for example, some ad hoc work at Wodonga and Migrant Experience, where Kellyanna has clearly been able to step up to that. So we can provide the opportunity for meaningful work for people with a disability or with challenges in our community, and us as leaders can absolutely take that role. And so it was a pretty brave and a new thing, and since several other councils, and I know because I've spoken to them and been contacted by them, are looking at this and or have taken this up as an option as well. So just so you understand a little bit of that background and make sure we've got that absolute clarity there. Councillor Lowe, to you for close.
Kind of stole my thunder a little bit, Madam Mayor. It was just about having value and competitive marketplace does come first and foremost. So we do encourage people from outside the area to tender for certain things and look outside the area. So first of all, we go chasing value for money, but it is when it comes down to that fine tuning, how then can we increase our value to the community, and that having that circular economy is one way to do that. Thank you.
Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 8.9 is the Municipal Emergency Management Plan 2018. If I can just remind us all, because you all have copies of it. It's actually this one. Part in here. No, that's it. You have that one. They're just some of the documents tabled tonight, and gallery, yes, we do get to read those. So this is a pretty important document, and Councillor Watson, as you're our representative, would you like to move this motion? Thank you, and someone to second it. Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a process that's got to occur every 3 years for a review and an update for the Act. And at this stage, I'd like to thank all the referring agencies from CFA through to Red Cross to State Emergency who've contributed to updating and reviewing this document. It's quite a lengthy document, and I congratulate Paul in getting this document through, because we need it done by the 3rd or 4th of July, so it goes to a third-party audit review as well. So it's very well taken into an area where it's reviewed and made sure that all aspects are the right going forward for our city. Things this document does, it's very much a operational document, but when we have such things such as heat waves, wildfires, which we did in West Wodonga some years ago, floods, and when we had the gas gate or the gas across on the gravel beds, and when we have a flu outbreak, they're just some simple things that this document lets our community get in and run it and manage it. So it's a very important document in that sense. So once again, to the team, I know Mark Varkin is in the audience. He as well was part of the team, and so with Narelle as well. So I congratulate everyone, but also mainly our agencies who support and run this city with us when in a state of emergency. They've all contributed to it to make sure the update and the review is done correctly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is probably one of the most important background underpinning documents that we do in our community. The thing about this, it's reliant on input from a range of professionals, and if you want to be absolutely honest about it, it's probably one of those things that councillors should keep their nose out of by and large, because we don't have, generally speaking, don't have the level of expertise that's necessary to contribute to a plan that is so technically orientated as what this is. There may be other components of it that fall into the local politics arena, but by and large, this is a fairly technical sort of document and process. Having said all that, we're governed powerfully by state legislation in relation to this sort of thing, and some of the things that I've observed happening in recent times is an element of cost shifting from the state to council in regard to some of these things, and state legislation that's influencing in a negative way the way that our community can volunteer and contribute to some aspects of these documents. The classic example is food handling and how you do catering and so on. In times gone by, we've had the Red Cross or the RSL or CWA or some of the other traditional groups rock up when there's an emergency on and put on food and spreads and everything else. Well, increasingly that's becoming more difficult as a consequence of food handling requirements and so on. So although I see these as vitally important documents and everything else, I also see them as changing the fabric of our community without particular input from the council. Nonetheless, it's a really important document, and I'll support this document as it's been presented. Thank you.
Councillors, you see this document come into its own, and I was unfortunate enough to, in my first few weeks as mayor, back in 2015, I think it was, we had bushfires, and to see the services come together to work seamlessly for our community to provide safety, security and clear and concise direction. This document absolutely works to keep it updated, to make sure it is relevant, meets the current legislation, but also continues to protect our community. So it is unfortunate when we have to enact it, but gee, I tell you what, you've got to be glad we got it when the times are tough. So congratulations to all the team putting it together and to all the stakeholders, because it doesn't happen alone. This is absolutely a collective from police, SES, ambulance, hospitals, everybody sits at the table to make sure this document works. So CEO, through you, back to all your team, thank you for the good work. Councillor Watson, anything for close? Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 8.10, you have a conflict. Councillor Mildren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a indirect conflict because of a conflicting duty. I'm on the Wodonga Senior Secondary College School Council, and one of the projects referenced in this item are in association with Wodonga Senior Secondary College.
Thank you. Councillors, the motion is there. I need someone to move and second that recommendation, if you will. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Lowe?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sport and recreation is a major part of our community. It's one of our things, I can't remember what it was in, but it's about promoting healthy lifestyle. And some of these sporting organisations need a helping hand, and if council can lead the way in showing them where they can apply for this funding, because there's numerous amounts of funding available, but not many of these sporting clubs know where they are. So having staff on board that can help and work with clubs and community groups to find out where these fundings are to go, I think it's a great initiative. And if council can make a small contribution to help this happen, then so be it. I haven't heard one sporting group or anything complain about anything that they've received so far, which is great.
It was me. Sorry, Madam Mayor. Hands were going up everywhere tonight. Madam Mayor, if we didn't have the support from state government and organisations to go with our funding, we couldn't deliver a lot of our projects. And at this point, I'd like to congratulate our team, here, because we do pull a lot of money out of sport and rec through our good submissions. And I think that's the important thing, is that we put great submissions forward to get that funding. So, our budget would blow out completely if we didn't have the support and the work that our staff and our sporting communities do, because they put submissions in to support it as well. So you'll see in the report all the funding that we're seeking, and those projects, unless I'm corrected, won't go ahead unless we get the allocated funds from sport and recreation. So don't fear that we're going to blow the budget out at this stage. But for next year, we've got to be thinking, advanced and into the future for our communities. And this is one way of doing it, and supporting us, so we're not, all our financial gains aren't through us. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
All right, I'll be brief. There's $262,000 of ratepayers' money going in here. It's hard to argue against this, spending money on sporting facilities for the children. So there it is. I'll spare everyone raving on about it. I'm pleased to see that most of these projects have some kind of user group contribution. I think we probably should see more of that. But certainly the heavy lifting is being done by the state government, we hope. Anyway, all right.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about the user contributions as well. You see on page 56 and 57, there's only one of those projects that they're not contributing to. That's the female-friendly facilities, and there is certainly a big, strong government mandate on supporting that. So I'd really like to see from here on going forward that we would always have something in our budget around female-friendly facilities. And well done to Wodonga Senior, who are putting in over $2 million to their project. That's an epic amount.
Councillors, it's pretty hard to argue that if we chip in $262,000 and we end up with nearly $6 million worth of total investment, it's pretty hard to argue, even from you, Councillor Quilty. But Councillor Lowe, I think you said it incredibly well. Sports, community groups, and getting out and getting active is a huge priority for our community as a whole. And one of the things that does help us become very successful in terms of getting grants is not only the fantastic grant writing, but it's also actually having the plans and having the vision and being able to commit to that as council and as our community. And we are absolutely strengthened by our community groups, because it is part of our policy where our community groups do co-contribute, and they should all be congratulated. I've had the very great privilege of opening quite a few new facilities in the last few weeks, and every single one of those groups has co-contributed, and they have worked hard out in our community, and they absolutely deserve everything that they have. So, councillors, it is really pleasing to see. Councillor Lowe, to you for any close.
just want to echo Councillor Bennett's thoughts around the female-friendly facilities too. Females in sport across all sports at the moment is just having a massive boom, and it was great. I sat in on a local government conference last year down in Melbourne, and the funding that they've made available, recognising the fact that women in sport, they're losing young girls and young teenagers really early to different sports because of facilities not being available to them. It wasn't that the sport wasn't available, it was the facilities weren't available. And the governments have stepped in now and made some injection of money there. So I really urge some of those clubs and sporting groups out there to take advantage of this and look into this while it's available. Also want to take the opportunity to thank all the volunteers in our sporting organisations. None of these organisations or community groups will run without these volunteers. I'd like to thank them for their participation in that too.
Thank you. Good closing comment. Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Good luck, Deb and the team. Bring back the cheque, as they say. Item 8.11 is the draft Gateway Island Master Plan. Councillors, I'll remind you, I do have the right document now, the draft document, and in addition to that was all of the, props that I prepared earlier. Thank you, Leon. That have all of the plans, etc. on. They are numerous, they're quite huge, so we do know that we've shared one copy so that we don't destroy all of the trees. But it is a very large document. Councillors, it is there before us. Can I have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you for the opportunity to move something else tonight, Madam Mayor. It's a high participation sport, this one, isn't it? So, the master plan, there's consultation back to that again. There's some really great and interesting ideas out of that. There's some that you can throw up in the air too, I'm sure, as in any consultation process. I probably got two comments for it. Hopefully this master plan is the plan that we move in action with. One thing people like myself don't like is a plan of a plan of a plan of a plan. I think I understand master plans and that are moving documents, but let's put some actions into place. I think this is the third or fourth master plan it has on Gateway Island now, and I understand that you need to update these, but let's put some of these into action because there's some really, really good ideas that have come out of this, and I'm really looking forward to the opportunities that we could make of this, as well as the two cities, one community aspect. Working with Albury City on this, I think it's given us a good opportunity now that they'll be able to see our plan, and maybe we can work in with their forefront plan down there as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Councillor Lowe's comments about Two Cities, One Community, a fantastic possible joint projects, particularly when we've got elections looming, and you know, so many eyes are on us about how Albury and Wodonga work together. So this is a really great example of how we could do that and hopefully attract some funding for that. Heaps of consultation went into this, and I went along to a few of the sessions. There's some consultation that I was involved in that isn't included. Just recently we had YACVIC come up to Wodonga, so they're a youth affairs council for Victoria, so they represent young people aged 12 to 25, and they were talking to these young people about a week and a half ago in Wodonga about their priorities, and they came up with a huge map, and one of the key priorities for young people was safe and access to the river. So they were seeing that as an activity, something to do, a way of getting off their screens out into nature, around encouraging physical and mental health, but also around an activity to do that doesn't involve alcohol. So really awesome to see our young people really prioritising access to our river as well. Oh, actually, I did have a question. So if this gets endorsed, so the plans, all the numerous plans, will they all be available on our website?
Madam Mayor, through you, yes, Councillor Bennett, they will be available on the website. The engagement process or the exhibition process now, I think, is about 6 or 7 weeks. So there'll certainly be plenty of opportunity for the community to take a look at those plans and make further comments on them.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think there's something I'd better declare and make clear, given the comments from Councillor Bennett. I didn't realise Yakvik had been up here, but my son's a board member of Yakvik. Whether that's a conflict or not, I don't know. But okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Now, in terms of this document, this is a quite voluminous document, and it has many different aspects to it. The vast majority of which I think come across as being quite good outcomes. There are a couple of things that I might have an opinion at variance over, and we can deal with through the consultation process on those things. So in terms of putting this out for formal consultation, I think that's a great move, and we can negotiate any of the things that come out of it. I'm always a bit worried when we put together large documents of this nature or large plans of this nature and we base it on community consultation, because there's a pitfall in there that can lead to things like the development of wish lists, which lead to plans that sit on a shelf and often have no substance to it. I think by and large, the majority of things that I've seen and had some review of it in my processes of looking at this, that it would appear that this document by and large is not a document that's made up of wish lists, although some things in there may be. There are some hurdles and things that we need to get over along the way. We recognise it as a floodplain, and that's always going to be something that's an impediment to trying to do any form of development. But the biggest and most overriding opportunity that comes from this is to create something that does form part of a single city between Albury and Wodonga. And it's been referred to by others, I didn't coin this, but it could become the actual central park, albeit on a much larger scale, between Albury and Wodonga, which becomes a very clear feature in our landscape, and something that in time, probably well beyond our time, could be seen to be a really highly valued component of the urban fabric in Albury and Wodonga. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, I was trying to think about what to say about this, and initially my initial thought was I was a bit underwhelmed by it, but that's probably not really fair at all. It's actually quite a solid plan. There are a lot of quite good ideas in it. A lot of them are quite concrete things that we can deliver. So it's actually quite a good document. There was perhaps no shining star, or maybe there is. Anyway, I wanted to highlight the suggestion that we put a pedestrian crossing over the causeway at the village. I do not think that's a good idea, and I think we should be going under the bridge, maybe improving the undercrossing there instead. However, that's out for consultation. Somebody suggested we should have a roundabout instead of the traffic lights, and I think that's a good idea. That wasn't included in the plan. That's got nothing to do with the fact that I drive over it twice a day, I'm sure. Anyway, all right, that's all.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to probably endorse Councillor Lowe's opening comments about this is probably the second, maybe the third review of a plan of Gateway Island, that now we must, once this has been out to the community, we must get some things actioned. We have actioned a few things, and we're using the Gateway Island with parklands things, but the beauty about this very large block of land is it's both in private, public and council ownership, and we have the ability to do some great things. One of the great things that's in this plan, which would be great to get the feedback from the greater community, is some linkages, 2 cities, 1 community, is some linkages or footbridges across the mighty Murray, and I think that would be so beneficial as one of the early placements to start the whole of the island starting to go forward. But I would like to think that when this comes back and is endorsed, that we don't get some things actioned, get some philanthropic, get some government, both state and federal, and 2 state governments in that sense of funding to really move this project ahead, because it is treasured by our communities. It's a fantastic spot on the Hume Highway between Melbourne and Sydney to get the greater use of this as a stopping place, a drop-in place. So there's so many things that this can benefit Australia-wide, but also our greater community. So I really look forward to getting some more positive information back, but then being very positive and moving this forward, because I don't want it to be another document on a shelf in an office that we have to blow the dust off it and think, oh, we've got to do the next consultation. We need to get action and move it forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, look, having been a resident of Wodonga for over 28 years, you know, you look at the Gateway Island and the river there and you think, oh, you know, why hasn't anything been done beforehand? There's so much potential there. But I think being that now we've established the two cities, one community, being able to go for federal funding with that backing behind, with the amount of people that live in this region and the potential for tourism with the Gateway Island projects. Look, it's a win for the community, and I look forward to hearing more feedback from the document that gets put on the exhibition. So, yeah.
Councillors, before I go back to you, Councillor Lowe, for close, I just have to make a comment. I think Councillor Mildren was kind of ironic. The planner was saying that there's plans out there with no substance. I did like that comment. Really thinking about this is the most robust document, master plan that I've seen for the island. Really important because of the increased usage. But Councillor Hall, you're spot on. This is such an amazing asset, and we have, as both cities, turned our back on the most beautiful river, arguably in the nation. So there is absolutely untapped potential there. In addition to that, I think what's really good about this document is it really outlines a long-term vision, but also some really great underpinning principles. So it's not just about the nitty-gritty and the detail of, well, you might not like a crossing, Councillor Quilty, but it's actually larger than that. The thinking is actually taking that step back and saying, well, what are the key components? There's environment, there's usage, there's activity, and how do they all connect? And then I'll remind us, councillors, that it's actually booked in for us to hold a joint meeting with Albury Council to discuss this plan and also discuss their plan on their side of the river and actually make those two things absolutely talk. So we do have to start somewhere. This is a step. So I'm looking forward for community to have a look at what has been put forward, some of those overarching principles to give them some more robustness and enable us to have a document that does allow us to go to government for funding in the future, but absolutely key that it is about two sides of the river and how they talk to each other. Councillor Lowe, over to you for some close.
Councillor Mildren mentioned earlier on the emergency plan that the stakeholders involved there was best for councillors to take a step back and get the technical experts in those fields. And that's exactly what we've done here with this master plan. The consultants that we've engaged are the technical experts. And so whilst our consultation where we go out and we meet with the communities, they inform part of it, but it's also with those consultants on board that they help us have the strategic direction over the whole plan as well. I'm actually really excited about what may fall out of this. I can see things, like you said, there is stuff, long-term future stuff, but there's some stuff that we can get right now, some actions right now, and that's what community wants. That they want something they can touch, they can feel, they can do. They don't want to particularly go through that whole plan nitty and gritty, but they want to see what evolves from it. There's sections of our community that will take an interest in reading that page by page, and let them go for it. It does take a while if you do want to do that. Yeah, it's exciting times, and again, getting the opportunity to chase some funding with Albury, I think this is a no-brainer for state and federal governments. If they step back, take a look at this will be a win-win for them. So I think they should have a look at it too. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillors, item is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 9.1 is the finance report for May. Second. The recommendation is there on page 78. Can I have someone move it? Thanks, Councillor Quilty. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. You've given that arm a workout tonight. Councillor Quilty.
All right. I had a couple of questions for Narelle, which I emailed to her a couple of hours before the meeting started. So hopefully we can have some response to that. If you look at the variance explanations on page 72, in item 4, employee costs, we still have $110,000 in staff development unspent. Are we still on track to spend that by the end of the financial year? That's question 1. Question 2 was in variance point 5, material expenditure. If I can add up correctly, there's 522,000 in consultancies in strategic planning not spent by the end of May. That's been recorded as a timing difference. So perhaps we could have an explanation on how much of this will be spent in June and how much is being rolled over into 2018-19. Presumably, if it's all timing, there's no amounts not being spent.
So the question came through about an hour and 20 minutes before the meeting. So I can respond to some of them. So our L&D, the current shortfall in our learning and development budget year to date for June is at $22,000, and we've still got some invoices outstanding, so there will be pretty much nothing left in learning and development. In relation to consultancies, the strategic planning consultancy was a shortfall of $263,000. It's now currently sitting at a shortfall of $223,000. There's a number of strategies that have been completed and we're awaiting on invoices, and there's some others that have been committed that might carry over into July. So there's also some shortfalls in consulting in economic development, funded community projects, business services, asset management and information management. So I'll get an email around for all councillors to provide a little bit more of a dissection on all of those. The majority of those items have been committed and are awaiting invoices, or there will be some that will require a carryover where in certain instances the consultants haven't been available prior to the end of June to do the work. Community funded projects, there was a shortfall of 31,000 there, and that's in relation to the grants funding, and we dropped the number of rounds from 4 to 2, so that will be a saving. Any other questions?
All right, and the third question was in the same item, a bit further down, we had $137,000 of works through capitalisation of expenses. Could you explain what that was?
Yeah, so that'll be detailed in the email that we'll circulate. There just wasn't time to go through every item after I got out of meeting. Thank you.
Any questions? No? Other councillors? No? Back to you for close. Councillor Quilty, anything?
Not really. I guess we look forward, after Mike Fraser's presentation last week, we look forward to seeing how the final budget washes up and whether the things are timing differences or permanent differences and whether we've overstated some items, but we look forward to seeing that. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Regardless of Mike Fraser, I hope that we all look forward to seeing how our budget washes up, given that it's our role and responsibility. Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 9.2, your 9.3. Thank you. 9.2 is the planning report for May. The recommendation is there on page 80 to be received and noted. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Any comments? Councillor Watson, anybody else want to? Yep, there you go, Councillor Lowe.
Just a quick one, Madam Mayor, actually. Oh, that's all. I thought I had a conflict then, but I don't. I thought one of the addresses was close. Just a good news story is the planning permits issued is 189 for May, which is our second highest since 2014, 2015, which just goes to show that we're growing as per expected second, is it second most in the state, I think, just to see clarification? Third fastest in the state, yeah. So people are spending money locally.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd be interested in seeing a bit more detail in the report in relation to permits issued. It'd be interesting to see the range and the cross-section of all the permits that get issued over a month. The report refers to 14 planning permits having been issued during the 1st of May to 31st of May. The table gives us the 5 that are considered significant. Be interesting to see the range and the cross-section of all the things that we actually end up having through the process. Thank you, Madam.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Council, would you like to see those at a council meeting or through a briefing? How would you like those presented to you or to the councillors?
Madam Mayor, either way, but I mean, it's probably a good thing to even have it in the community and just add to this table. I think that'd be fine. Thank you.
I wouldn't assume it takes a whole lot more enterprise to do that. No? Okay, easy done. We'll have that added to this report. Back to you, Councillor Bennett, for any close. Nope. Councillor's motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 9.3 is the building report. Councillor Mildren has a conflict. Would you turn your mic on?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have an indirect conflict. One of the permits issued, one of the building permits issued relates to land that's owned by a client and which my business acted for this client in relation to this land some time ago. It's not recent, but some time ago.
Thank you. Councillors, the recommendation is there on page 84. Can I have someone move it? Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Sorry, you stuck your hand up, but Councillor Bennett was looking at me. Councillor Watson, any comment?
Yes, I will make comment. I always love something that has solar in it because which helps reduce a lot of issues in our economy. But I also go over the page and just look at the sushi back in town, which is going to be great. You know, another food outlet in town, and that our building permits are all ahead on scale. So, you know, it's just showing the growth and commitment to our city that people are doing. So, congratulations, all those people are having a go, and we're moving forward.
Any other councillors? Any other councillors excited by having sushi back in town? I am. Councillor Watson, did you have anything for close? No. Councillor's motion is before us. All those in favour? It's just the small things, isn't it, councillors? Item 9.4 is the Competitive Services Report for May. Recommendation is there on page 88. Councillors, can I have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Mildren. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Mildren, any comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question. On page 85, under tender quotations under evaluation, W1311 refers to design and installation of photovoltaic systems. I'd be interested to know where that is and what that's for.
Through you, Madam Mayor. There's solar panels being fitted on 4 of our community centres, or Feltimber Community Centre is getting a 15 kilowatt one. There's already 5 kilowatts existing there, so we're adding to that. It will be a total of 20 kilowatts. Barranduda Community Centre will be getting an additional 10 kilowatts, which will bring add to the 5 that's already there, bring it up to 15. Jamison Court, we're installing a 10 kilowatt system. Bongula Migrant Experience, a 10 kilowatt system. So that's what they're all going to.
Over to Councillor Bennett. You seconded it, didn't you? Yep. Any other comments? Yep.
Just that with Assumption Park or Garden there, just construction of some new public toilets. It's one of a very well-used area down there, and it'll be well appreciated by many people caught short down there, I'm pretty sure.
Mildred, back to you for close. Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 9.5 is the review of instrument of sub-delegation. Councillors, I'll remind you what that document looks like. The recommendation is there as tabled and be received and noted. Can I have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Quilty. Councillor Watson.
It's a very vast document, Madam Mayor. I wouldn't know where to start, but congratulations to our team of officers that have put it all together to make sure it's up to standard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've basically see this as a staff document that is within the domain of the CEO, and I've referred to it other times where this is not something that the council can actually take active involvement in, and note that all we're doing here is receiving and noting the document. We're not having an input, and under the legislation neither should we have an input. So just make that observation. It could have come to us in a different format perhaps that said for information, and that would have achieved the outcome. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So in summary, what it actually is being updated with is changes to legislation and actually effectively changes to staff title is basically the changes that are before us. The initial review of the delegations we did some time ago now, but we need to make sure it is up to date with legislation. It's pretty simple, really. So you're right, it could just be received and noted, but important that we do share that information with the community if they so choose to read that document. Councillor Bennett. Councillor Quilty. No close? Councillor's motion is before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 10.1 is assemblies of councillors. It is for information only, unless there is any comment. Item 10.2 is status report on all council meeting resolutions, and I'll take that as received and it is for information only. Item 10.3 is the Energy Procurement Australia Retail Electricity, Natural Gas and Associated Services to be received, and the recommendation is there on page 106. Can I have someone move that, please? Thanks, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Watson.
Madam Mayor, self-explanatory. It's there for our information, and we have some savings as well along with the change. So congratulations to Narelle and all the team that worked on it.
Yeah, I just wrote something just a little bit on it. It's pleasing to see that the new energy contracts came in way under the previous council estimates of 6.5 million. I always thought the cost was high, and I'm glad to see that the estimates have come in quite a bit lower. The new estimates are a bit over 4 million to the council for our energy supplies. It's good to see that this has come in under the 26% rise, which was just under our allocated amount, estimated rise of 30% in our budget going forward. Energy costs are a major concern for councils, businesses and probably everyone out there in the public, and any savings in this area is good news. So that's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The energy marketplace at the moment is a pretty fickle place, and we seem to be hearing about prices and everything going up and up and up and up, which every household's experiencing it. When you see an outcome like this and understand the system and the processes and the work that's gone into this outcome and the time it's taken to get there, I think the staff should be commended. I think it's a job well done. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'd just like to say I'm really excited that it didn't cost $1.5 million more. So, yes, great.
Absolutely, and I think that, thank you for your comments, councillors, and back through the CEO and to all of the team. We work hard on every contract that we have to come in with the best price that we possibly can, and let's hope those new solar panels bring it down even further. Councillor Watson moved. Anything for close? No. Councillor's motion is before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Clearly it's a long night because I'm starting to forget. Item 11.1 is the Refugee Community Sponsorship Program, and councillors, given that I actually put this notice of motion, I would like to move it, but I'm actually going to move it with one slight amendment, and then I'll, if I can get a seconder, then I will talk to it. I'd like the notice of motion to be item 1, item 2, with A, B, C, D, and remove E. Can I have a seconder for this? Thank you, Councillor Mildren. Councillors, if you'll allow me, I received an email and from Amnesty International to put this motion before council. In 2015, Wodonga Council put a motion and it was adopted to become a refugee welcome zone and to really not only celebrate but welcome and support people who move here to our community from other nations, and usually under some sort of stress and or duress. We will look around the rest of this week. There's actually another 5 regional councils in this area who are also going to put this motion so that we can show true support for our community, and it is made up of a huge number of people coming from different parts of the world. I have the absolute great privilege of seeing the new citizens through citizenship ceremonies, and there is not one family who is not grateful and absolutely so proud to become an Australian. So when I see, threats to the support that those people might receive and they need, not just receive, but they need, I think we, on behalf of our greater community, and they are included as a part of it, need to step forward and continue to make sure we lobby really hard that our community, our newest members of our community, get the support that they need and receive. So thank you for allowing me to put this motion. Councillor Mildren, if you have any comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Over the journey, I've had some involvements with some refugees in my previous life in local government, and I've seen the impacts and the things that have occurred in the disruptions and things that happen in their life. So I understand a whole range of things that happen and what the local communities need to do to support and make the transition to a new environment for these people as acceptable and as supportive as possible. Having said all that, it's important to me that we as local government deal with those things that are in our domain and lobby for those things in our domain, but don't step across the line into the Commonwealth activities or the broader pictures or the broader things that are the domain of the Commonwealth Government. And I think this motion deals with those things that are by and large in our domain, and we're seeking support and contribution from higher government, from the Commonwealth and others to support the local activities that make these people's lives better. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, ever since probably post-World War II, our community, Wodonga, and the greater surrounding has been very adaptable to migrants and people coming in, and the Kosovars in the most recent war, and many other refugees. But we are a very good community accepting of these people, and it has made our community much richer for it too, with food and with culture and all sorts of things. So being involved and being accepting of this is a fantastic thing, and I think we should be very proud that we have these people within our community that build and make Wodonga.
Having been born and raised here, I would say for Wodonga people, family is incredibly important, keeping families together, and working with people less fortunate than ourselves to help build their capacity to look after themselves and contribute back to our community. As Councillor Watson alluded, a huge part of our history is Bongilla, and us as a community rallying behind and supporting a lot of people who were fleeing their home country in the hope of having a more safer life in Australia. Most of us at the table, the vast majority of us at the table were lucky enough to be born in Australia, so we don't know what it's like to live in a country where we're scared the government might hurt us, might kill us, where we worry where our children will get their next meal from. So we've been quite lucky. But maybe a generation before us or before them, they at one point probably made the decision to leave their country at some point for whatever reasons, and they came to Australia and were welcomed here to start a new life. So I think that's important to keep that in mind, that colonial Australia is literally founded on people arriving here and us, so probably none of us would be here if that wasn't the case. Now, this will really test my patriotic skills, so hopefully I don't have to sit the citizenship test anytime soon. Something in our national anthem along the lines of people who have come from overseas with boundless plains to share. Something like that. That's what we've said in our national anthem. So this motion, I think, is about us reminding our federal government of what we've said in our national anthem, that we will welcome people from across the seas.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett, and I am going to make you sing the national anthem at some point. You do know that. Other councillors, any comments? Councillor Quilty.
All right. I'll preface this with saying that I don't know the details of the community sponsorship program, but I like the sound of it. I think community sponsorship of immigrants is a good thing. So having said that, it probably should be expanded. The one part of this resolution that I have a problem with is that we should limit the cost on sponsors. It's not entirely clear to me why the taxpayers should be picking up the bill. Surely this is a perfect opportunity for people who care to show just how much they care with their own wallets. The individual generosity should go back to the sponsors, not to the taxpayers in general. But the principle of community sponsorship, I am very much behind.
Thank you. I have nothing to close. Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. I look forward to seeing the other outcomes across our fellow neighbouring councils. Item 12 is petitions, of which there is none. Item 13 is council seal. There is none. Item 14, urgent business. There is none. 15 is question time. We do have a question. No questions? Now, councillors, this is where we intend to insert 8.6. Now, I'm just going to explain this to the gallery because when we discuss a person in particular, or even, in fact, a company, we need to do that in a confidential manner, so we are absolutely respectful. So, councillors, I'm going to turn us to 8.6. I am going to ask... I'm going to come to that. I promise you I haven't forgotten. I'm going to turn us to 8.6, and then I'm going to ask somebody to move and second that. And then should we need to go in camera, I will ask for a mover and a seconder to move into camera and to suspend standing orders. So you've all got the instructions. I just want to make that really clear. So people in the gallery, if we move to in camera, you will be asked to leave the room. We will come back out of camera, in which I would invite all of you to come in here and please rejoin us, because as we close the meeting, we actually have our YAS, our Youth Achievement Scheme Award, and because this is being live streamed, that is actually stopped because of young people and capturing image. So we will have our young people to receive their award. So I would warmly welcome you back in here post potentially being kicked out while we do some in-camera. I want to make that really clear so everybody understood. So item 8.6 is there, councillors, it's page 26 of your agenda. And I would ask that we are absolutely respectful and of names and naming people. Would request that that does not occur unless we are in camera, but we do have as much open discussion as we can around this. So are you waving at me to put the motion? A motion, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move point 1 of the motion as the motion for conversation in open council, and I'd like to move item 2 into the confidential section of council.
So councillors, did everybody understand that comment from Kevin? So we can put item 1, then if we move in camera and we have discussions, there can be other items being put forward, i.e. item 2. And then when we return from in camera, all of those motions, all those items can be put up for adoption. Yep, comfortable? Somebody happy to second item 1? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Mildren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The amendment to the terms of reference has come about because of the things that transpired and the matters that we had to consider in dealing with the applications for the committee and associated matters. There were some things where the original terms of reference had some community groups that were identified as being participants on the committee, but through the process it became apparent that those community groups from time to time gain beneficial contracts out of council, and it was felt that that was potentially compromising them and the council, and the decision was, well, the decision is to be made now, but the recommendation was from that process was to come back and talk to the full council and have an amendment to the terms of reference such that those organisations can be co-opted on a needs basis for professional or technical or other relevant information, but don't form part of the overall committee process. That's one component. The other component, just as a matter of housekeeping, I note in the report, early in the report, it refers to myself and Councillor Bennett and the CEO as being appointed to manage the process. Technically, we were co-opted. There was no council resolution that actually appointed us, so it's a bit of a technicality and I might be playing with semantics, but nonetheless, let's put it out there. Otherwise, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to see item 1 accepted.
Yeah, just like to echo everything that Councillor Mildren just said. Just adding one point, I think it's terrific that we've got a permanent representative from the local Indigenous community. So there's heaps of opportunities here for engagement with the traditional owners. So great that they are a permanent member of this group.
I'd probably just like to thank all the community members that applied for these positions and made themselves available. It's going to be a big task, and the quality of applicants, from what I understand, was quite high. So it was just a big thank you to them.
Can I please thank the CEO and both Councillor Bennett and Councillor Mildren for the time that you've taken to interview each of those fantastic community members who did put themselves forward, who did put their skills up for the greater benefit of our community. And I think it was really important work that it was impartial and that you absolutely sat at that table and reviewed skills and the best way forward for our community. So thank you for that work that you did. So, councillors, if there is any other comment or question, if not, I go back to Councillor Mildren. Can we move and pass this one? Can this go up, or do we need to move into camera? What would you like to do, Councillor Mildren? Deal with this now? Councillor Mildren, did you have a close?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just as a more broad component, that the quality of applicants for this committee was extraordinary. And it was such a diverse set of people, and a really interesting exercise in trying to make some determinations as to how you balance that to get a committee that's going to produce really strong outcomes in accordance with the plans that we've actually adopted and put in place. And to make sure that the dynamics in that group worked. There's people in the group that have extraordinary skills, but if you put everybody in the group with the extraordinary skills and miss out on others, then you don't have a balanced outcome in the group. So we've had to juggle, and we've had some, in the committee, we've had some rather interesting conversations in how we balance that and how we deal with that and how that outcome works. And clearly, I mean, it has been a robust conversation in getting to the point where it's come to tonight. So I'll put the motion and I leave the more detailed comments to the next bit in camera. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So that item 1 of the recommendation as put forward by Councillor Mildren, seconded by Councillor Bennett, is before us, councillors. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. I would now like to ask someone to move to suspend standing orders and to call for in camera. Can I have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Mildren. Thank you, Councillor Quilty. I'm going to take it that nobody's going to argue against that. Councillors, all those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Gallery, if you'd be so kind. Sorry, I know this is a little clunky, but it's because we are live streamed and we do and in which case then we hope to be able to put a media release out either by close of business tomorrow or Wednesday, so that everybody will be aware, and we can do that absolutely respectfully to all those included. Councillor Bennett, anything for close? Councillor's motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Okay, that just leaves me with confidential items. There is none. Confidential urgent business, of which there is none. And it leaves me to close the meeting and then to, and I'm just having a look, we have got Valentina here. You've done very well to sit through this. We're going to close the meeting and then take live streaming off, and then we will present you with your